other class, but I'll record for you, and maybe this will be briefer and a bit more concise. But so yes, please download the exercise from D2L. The instructions are there. The idea is by the end of this, you should have created some tables and put some data in them, and also be able to delete tables, etc. The commands are fairly straightforward. You have two actual options for doing this. One option is that you can use the SIT School of IT server, which is actually a computer that's housed in Robert Ford's office here in Building 10. So that's nice. We use that. You may have used a little bit of it. This is can you see SIT? This is some of that there for me. If you go to what we did today, if you look at our at what we're looking at today, you'll see that I put a link in there, and if you followed that link, that would bring you to this trivial SQL login, and you log in with the what you log in. Your username will be your student number, 600 whatever. Your password will be whatever password you use to log into the college stuff, and your database will be DB and then your student number. Well, for me, it's DB Mark. Yeah, okay, and then you log in, and you have this interface with which you can start working on your database. Now, notice it tells you the database that you're logged into. Each of you has your own database set up there. That's for you. And you can create these tables. Now, the tables will live within the database. They will stay there for the duration of this course, and you can just work on them. So the good thing about that is you can just do it once, and you can go in there and start creating your tables and come back the next day. The tables are there. Another way of doing it is to use SQL Online, SQL Online. So you can just navigate to this URL, and this URL will allow you to put in SQL code. It's not quite exactly right in some of the. I noticed some code doesn't work exactly right, but it's pretty much right. And I like this. This is the one that I'm going to use for my demonstrations for you, because the code looks good. It looks like what you'd see on a real server, a bit more than the trivial one does. Um, I'm not the SQL workbench you're thinking about is probably MySQL. Um, and no, I don't think it is quite the same, but the SQL commands do work pretty much the same. So SQL is SQL. You know what I mean? So and MySQL uses SQL commands. There's many others. If you see over here in my in this SQL Lite, it gives you very many variations of SQL that you can use. You can use MariaDB, PostgreSQL, SQL, MS SQL. They're all pretty much the same in handling the queries that we're going to be using. If you have on your computer MySQL, go for it, right? Yeah, I mean that means that you have installed a server, an SQL server. MySQL is a free server that you can download. You actually, if anybody wants to do that, the things that you would look for would be WAMP, WAMP, WAMP server. WAMP, W stands for Windows, uh, A stands for Apache, um, uh, uh, M stands for MySQL, and P stands for PHP. If you download that server onto your computer, you'll be able to make websites that work with SQL in the background, providing you the database support. And so that's a very nice tool to have. And it's free because it's open source. And yeah, XAMPP is okay also. That's great. Another one is MAMP, MAMP, which is for the Mac. Yes. So go for it. Any of those you can use. I like to do that. If you don't feel like running a server on your computer, um, you can uh, you can just go to this SQL Lite. Now, the problem with the SQL Lite is it's not going to store your data on there. All right, you don't actually have a workspace, which is your area that is going to be permanent. So what, in fact, 15 minutes after you stop using it, it will drop your web your not your web your database, and you'll have to connect again. But that's okay because all of the commands that you use to build your web, what am I talking web? I don't know. To build your database, all of those commands, you'll store them anyways, store them in a script file, a .sql file, and then you can rebuild your database at any time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click onto this. If I click to connect onto that, give it a second. Come on. Okay. And now I am logged in, if you like, or whatever, but without any credentials. But I'm able to use now temporarily this space to do my SQL. So I'm going to create these tables. Now, this is what I mean. To save myself trouble, I will go and create using. I'm sure you're familiar with this now, right? Using our our code. Um, we're going to use that, and we're going to save the document as a SQL file. So what we'll do is so it's Virtual Studio Code, create the document, and then when we go to save it, we save as, and make sure you save it with an extension .sql, and it's a SQ, and the type of file is .sql. Now, doing that, what will happen is that Visual Studio Code will give you some hints as to, are you doing the right thing with your SQL commands. And actually, it's quite common for people to write what we call scripts, SQL scripts, and so they'll upload their tables using a script, and so they'll have a script file which maybe has got thousands of rows in it, which has all of their values. Now, if it was an online database that was live, you wouldn't do that, I suppose. But for our purposes here, this is fine. Now, we've got some commands here that actually I noticed that in this SQLite Online, not all these commands work exactly as this is, so we have to sort of edit them a bit. The if exists thing, that doesn't seem to like that. Now, students in the other class asked me, well, why would I do a drop table before creating a table? That's just kind of standard practice. If you're going to, you will get an error if you try and create a table which already exists. And so pretty common that we have these little tests. We can do if exists when we try to, or if not exists, if we try to create a table, and if exists if we're trying to drop a table. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this table sales rep. Now, I have written the code here. And so this is the way I do SQL for this course anyways, is I've got all of my SQL code written. I've saved it into a file. And when I need to use it, I just copy it and paste it into my SQL. So I'm going to put that there. And hopefully you'll be able to see. Here we go. That window's kind of small. Maybe I can make it a bit bigger. Okay, so now I've got my command create table, and we see that, and I just run it. You can tell that it's worked because if you look over here, you can see that that table has been created, and you can actually see all of the fields that have been created. And if I go past each of those fields slowly, I can see how they've been created, and they have been created according to the rules that I've wanted. Now, if I want to populate that, now notice also we've got these things in green here that show up in the Visual Studio Code. The green stuff is a comment that's not going to affect the SQL. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to populate. That's the word I use to say that I'm going to add data to. I'm going to populate this table. Now, the problem with SQLite is you're basically down to one command at a time. If you're using, like Carlos is, MySQL, this is the proper thing, right? You would be able to take this thing that I've got here, this whole file with 234 lines of code, and just run it, and it would load up your database all sort of just as you sat there, and take a couple of seconds to create all of the tables and put all the data in them and run all of your queries. So that's MySQL is industrial strength. This stuff here is kind of just playing around on the internet, but that's fine for us in this course, right? Okay, so this is going to insert into that table. Now let's look how that works. Maybe I should go back to the create table. Create table command. We say create table, the name of the table. Then we open a round bracket. That round bracket includes all the fields of that table. The end of every SQL command is a semicolon. And so one field at a time here, each field separated by a comma from the next field. So what we do is we give the field name, we give the data type of the field, and it could be in that data type that we have to say how big it is. So it's like putting information and it will be shown in a specific way. That's correct. Yes, this is the way the information will be. A char field or car it means it's going to hold characters. That means you can put any character in there. You can put a number, you can put a special character, you can put a letter of the alphabet. That's how we hold most of our data, names, stuff like that. Primary key, we're going to use a char, and it's only going to have 2 characters for this one. Primary key means this is going to be the key that we use to unlock all the data in this table. So the primary key is going to be the identifier. And so each sales rep has a number, number 20, number 35, number 65, whatever. If you look here, you can see those key fields. So sales rep, there's a sales rep who is number 20. There's a sales rep who's number 35. There's a sales rep who's number 65. Those are the rep numbers. Then each sales rep has a last name, and it's a different type of field. It's varchar. Varchar means variable characters. The benefit of the varchar is that in this case, we've given it 50 characters space, but if they have a name that's shorter than that, not all of that 50 characters will be taken up in the memory to save that data. So it's a more efficient way of storing data than the char. So yes, we got a first name, last name. Those are all varchar, and state is only a char because every state is going to have a 2-character abbreviation. That's just the way it works. This is American. All zip codes in the United States are 5, so there's no point doing varchar. Everything's going to take 5. Now we've got some numeric. Actually, the other class, they asked me what's the difference between numeric and int. I hope that's kind of obvious. Numeric, we can have decimal values, and int, you can only have whole numbers. And so we've got some numbers there. And if you look at the way that those are displayed, even in the Visual Studio Code, you'll see that it's displayed with a different color than the text. And that's because it's a number. And numbers are different. You can do math with numbers. And so it's quite important that if you want to do any math with it, you save it as a number. If you don't want to do any math with it, save it as a char. Okay, so that's nice. If I run this, did I run it yet? I don't think so. We'll know. When I run it, well, what happens now is that this table now has some data in it. And how can I tell if it's got any data in it? Well, I can do a select statement. Select is how we retrieve the data from a table or from multiple tables. So I'm going to say select star. Star is a wild card. It means everything. Select everything from, I have to say what table I want to get from sales rep, right? Because that's the only table that exists now. Every SQL command must be ended with a semicolon. I run that and I see the result come in the bottom. And so that's showing me all of the values. And you will notice that the colors of numbers are different there, but I notice actually with zip is not stored as, it's stored as a character, but it looks like a number. All right, so that's the sales rep. I'm going to do the same thing with the customer. Now I notice this command here, and these are exactly the same. If you look, what I'm doing is I'm just taking these things and putting it in. Then the next thing that happens is this. So I'm just taking these things and dropping it into my SQLite. And then after that, I'm adding the values. Now, you should actually pay a bit of attention to how we do that. So I'm going to do this next one, which is the customer for you now. So pay attention to it and see what's happening there, right? So we create a table. I'm going to delete this if not exists because that doesn't seem to be supported by SQLite. And we know that it doesn't exist because here we are using SQL. Tables don't exist after 15 minutes if we don't keep using them. So we're creating the table, then we got the round bracket there, and then everything that follows is a bunch of fields. So there's our first field, which is a primary key with 3 characters, which is the customer number. Then their name, that makes sense. The street that they address and their city, and all of these things are varchar because they could be different lengths. The state is only 2 characters because every state is 2 characters. The zip is 5, and then the rest are numeric. Then at the end, we got our semicolon. Let's run it, and that has created the customer table. If I click on that, I can see that all of those fields are there. Now I want to load the data into the customer table. Loading the data. Now pay attention to this one. How do we load the data? Let's see, make sure we get this right when we do it ourselves as students. All right, so how do we do it? Insert into the name of the table. Then we have, notice what comes next, between round brackets is a list of all the fields that we're going to insert data into, which is all the fields. And they are in the order that they were created in the table. That's nice. And then we have the word values, and then a bunch separated by, each one of these has a round bracket around it and a comma at the end. And then inside, separated by commas, are all the values for that record. So each of these is a different record. So our first one is for is for customer called Al's Appliance and Sport. That customer has the customer number 148. Their address is 2837 Greenway. Their street is Fillmore. Their state is Florida. Their postcode is 33336. The 65550, I think that, well, let's see, that's their balance. Then they have a credit limit of 7,500, and then they are represented by representative number 20. Now this number 20 actually appears in another table. That is the representative number that is used in the sales rep table. All right, so I'm going to run that now. Now notice at the end, like I said, there's a semicolon at the end. So what do we got? Insert into the table, list all the table fields, then the word values, then list all the rows. This could go on for a long time. I'm not going to say forever because nothing's infinite. We do run out of space. But you could have thousands of records just like this, one after another. And then all you'd have to do is do your run. And so you could take a spreadsheet and have all these values in a spreadsheet, then use an editor to do a find and replace and make sure everything, because in a spreadsheet, you could save the values as comma separated and then just put a bracket around the end of each one. I mean, there's lots of, that's kind of fun thing of translating data from one sort of way of storing things to another, but I'm sure somebody has done that. I may have even done it myself at some point. Now, so I've got an error here. What's it saying? I think what it's saying, I think I might have run this already. Yeah. All right. So yes, I have. So let's have a look. How will we know that we've run it already? Oh, well, we'll just do a select star from customer. Because I think I ran that twice. And if I ran it twice, it won't work the second time because you can't enter a value with the same key. So all of the data has gone in there. I now have 2 tables up. I'll go and do the next table, which is orders. Create, and again, this code is given to you. This code is given to you. It's in the notes, right? So how do we add it? All right. If I'm missing something there? Yeah, I am. What happened there? I missed out the start of the command, which is to create table. This doesn't do anything. There we go. Create table. Orders. Okay, then how's orders going to be? We open a round bracket, and then there's going to be the fields. It's going to have a primary key. Can't really have a table in SQL without a primary key. Okay, so that's created that. Now I'm going to add data to the orders table. So insert into orders, and we see all the data that's going to go into the orders table. You will do this also. So there's our insert into, there's all the fields, there's all the values. Run that, test to see that it's working. select star from orders, semicolon, run. There's all the orders values down the bottom. Next one is our part. So we've only got 2 more tables to create. And again, all of this code is given to you. You just have to put it in. We noticed that in SQLite, the if not exists thing doesn't really work. Okay, so that's created the table. We can see all the tables have been created: customer, orders, part. Sir, what's the purpose of MySQL Web? MySQL Web is, I'm not sure what MySQL Web is. I like using SQLite because it's free, but I haven't used MySQL Web, but I imagine it's a bit like SQLite. Okay, so did I create this table part? Well, we can see, yes, there it is. So now I'm going to insert all the data into part. And there it all is. And I can see that it's there, doing a select star from part and run. There they all are. All that data is in there. One more table, last one. So now, if we had, okay, so this might answer your question. Maybe if you used a different web, a different server, I wouldn't have to do this one command at a time. I could just take the whole thing, copy it, paste it, dump it in there, and the whole thing would run for me. If I was using MySQL on my laptop, that would work. Okay, but here using this, so this is a little kludgy. I mean, it's not perfect. But yeah, so there are, but as I said, if you're using MySQL, that's a bit more industrial strength, and it would work a little less steps required, and it would also hold your data, and it could hold thousands if not millions of records, and it would be there the next day, that kind of stuff. So that's a bit better, but here we're just sort of we're getting used to it, and I kind of like this because it forces you to write your scripts. So you're going to have to write a if you're going to use SQL online, which I like, then you're going to have to write a script like I've written here, put all your commands into a script like this, and save them. And then you've got this forever. I mean, it doesn't matter if the server crashes, you've got your script, and you can, in 20 minutes, build your database again just by copying and pasting. Or if you had MySQL, you could just do it in 2 seconds, right? Copy the entire SQL file, dump it into MySQL, and boom, there's your database. Just like that, it would create all the tables and populate them for you sort of automatically. Okay, so I've done the order line table. I need to, did I run it? Yes, I did. That's what comes up with the error. Yes, there it is. So now I'm just going to insert my data into that. Oh, there's a bunch of select statements. That's for later labs. And there we go. That is going to, so now I've got all my tables. So let's see, select star from order line, semicolon, run. There it is. All the data is in there. Let's go and see if we've done everything that we're supposed to do. We added these. Now notice, this could be misleading. Every time I teach this, I find students trying to do this. They're doing this one statement at a time. Notice that's not the way we did it. Did you notice that was not the way we did it? We inserted all of the values at the same time with a single insert command, where we insert, we say the table, we say the fields, and then we put the values, each one taking a different line. That's by far a better way than trying to do it one thing at a time. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that. All right. So insert into, you can do it one at a time. Not one at a time, all together. And so all of these things we could do together. Before proceeding, select star. I don't know if you guys wanted us all listening to you while you're talking, but if you do, you can unmute yourselves. Okay, so you can do the select. I've shown you that. Oh, there we go. Create all of those tables. I've shown you that. We've inserted data. I've shown you that. Select okay, and so there's the customer table. Remember, all the values, you're just going to do those one line at a time. Yeah, easy peasy. Insert into. You don't need to do this one command like that. It's just one single command does all of them. Much better than doing it like this. Don't do that. All right, before select it, blah blah, and then your orders there. Yeah. So we've done all of those. That's just saying create all those tables. That confirm. How do you confirm that we've added the data? Select star from. If you want to delete, yes, we can delete. You can. There's a couple ways we can do the delete. We can say delete, and I think we say, is it from table? Yeah, from delete star from sales. Yes, sales rep. Now, what this will do is it doesn't remove the table, but it will get rid of all the data that's in it. Oop, didn't like that. Yeah. Another way to do it would be you could just drop the table. Drop table, and then you say the name of the table. And that's kind of a bit more extreme. And now that table is gone. But because we are careful and we saved all our data, we can easily make that table again, right? All we have to do is get our code that we have saved, because we're all going to save this, right? We're all going to create this file. And so every time we delete our data, that's all right. We just go back in, create the table again. Don't need to write the code because we've got it saved. Run the code, add the values that have been lost. Run the code. And we're back to where we were. And so we've got our sales rep back in there. All right, so any questions? I hope this kind of makes some sense. We got like 10 minutes for questions if you want to, a little less than 10 minutes. The other class found it kind of hard. So nobody's really stopped me and found it hard. So I'm assuming that means that you don't find it hard. Is that correct? I know Carlos didn't find it hard. He's just like, when can we start using a real industrial strength SQL, right? But I mean, what about the rest of us? How any comments at all on this? Sir, so we put the whole information in versus code, or whether whatever, then we VS code. Yes. That's what I would do. I mean, within reason, right? I mean, you're going to do this one command at a time, so you'll test it. You'll take the command, test it in your code. If it works, then you save it, and you can leave it and go on to the next bit. Same as we do when we're doing our Python or whatever. Every time you make a change, you usually test it, make sure that change didn't sort of mess things up, and then you can. Now, how you can send me the data, how you could send me your answer, you could send me a VS created file, Visual Studio Code created file, which is saved as an extension with .sql with your name in it, and lab whatever it is, lab one of this, and just with all your commands in it. You could save me that because I can test that. And yeah, and then add to it a couple of so that would be you can't add images to that, but you could then add another file, which would be a Word file with some images showing that you've done this thing. For example, you could do Oh, I don't want to take that. You could do a snip and show me that you've done the code. You could do a snip and show me that the code is in there, because when you did a select, um, you could do a few snips and put them into a Word document, and that would show me that what you've done. I don't need to have any, and then put all of that compressed. Yeah, you probably would need to compress it, because it's possible that D2L will not like this if it sees the .sql file. So yeah, so that's what I would say. Make a folder and say, and call it lab 1 or whatever. Put a Word file in there with snips showing all your work in your whatever SQL you're using. You can use this SQL, or you can use the SIT one. That one, you have an account there, you can use that and it will stay. Or if you've got your own MySQL account or MS SQL or whatever SQL you've got, you can use that. Take a snip showing your work. See, if you were going to do a snip here, you would include all this down here that shows that that data is in there. Put that into a Word document, and then also save for me a .sql file that you've created in Visual Studio Code. Doesn't have to be Visual Studio Code. You could use brackets, or you could use Notepad++. You could use Word and save it, but don't do that, because that would be hard. Why make a rod for your back? Use Visual Studio Code, because that's the tool that you'll be using going forward into year 2 and 3 of your course here at the college. So yeah, I highly recommend that you stick with your Visual Studio Code. That'll save you some trouble, because you won't have to be learning lots of different things. How's that sound? Any other questions? Oh, you guys, yeah. That means you got it, right? You got it? Yeah, I'm going to pause the recording and stop the recording, I think.